I bid you all good morning, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be watching this transmission. It is I, Mike Martins. You're going to want to sit back and watch this one. I got a really, really good article for you guys. Guys, thanks for tuning into the channel, being part of the channel, subscribing and sharing videos. This channel is very, very heavily censored. It is what it is, guys, but at least I'm reaching some of the people and creating some sort of a voice. I'm risking my life doing some of this from time to time, but you know what? I want a better future for my kids. So anyways, what's happening? Well, let's shift over to article scan here real quick. And this article is actually from June 3rd, 2020. Yes, it is a few days old, but nobody panic. Because I got a tie-in of articles here that you need to get out there because this is very important. And you know how I like to connect the dots and figure things out, right? So here it is. This is coming from the Sunday morning, China Sunday Morning Post here. And this is a very important one. Revive millionaires' migration. So they want to revive millionaire migration. Okay. I'm going to show you what we're talking about in the next article. To cure Canada's COVID economic woes, says advocates. So they want to scrap all the laws that were put in place to protect the Canadians, but it was too little too late. Because the next administration came in, and when they did, the current administration we have now basically changed everything backwards and on its feet and on its head. So the current liberal government we have in place right now. The Investment Industry Association of Canada wants the federal investor program restarted, but a professor who studied it, it's called a dismal failure. So they want to restart that investment in industry. So here it is, guys. Now, advocates of millionaire migration in Canada are citing economic impact of COVID as they push to revive the controversial federal immigrant investor program. Now, a lot of people ask me, it's like, why don't they, like, I mean, Mike, I can't from Toronto take a flight to LAX. I can't fly to Miami. No, but you could take a flight and fly to China. And why is that? Well, there's a reason why. Because Canada, I would say arguably, a good portion of our major cities are autonomous regions of China now. There's no question. You want to question it and debate it, go ahead. But now, this said, like today we just did Can't Read Morning Market Talk. We went live and we're answering questions and stuff. And we sold off a bunch of more gold mines and silver and all this other stuff we're selling off and to China. So the problem is, who's allowing? Like, are they asking the people that live in the country if they're allowed to sell off their country? As a corporation, you know, oh, you want to buy shares in our country? Buy up our country. But the scheme once dominated immigration from Hong Kong and then mainland China has been linked to critics, housing unaffordability, low tax revenue, fraud, and other filings. Yes, there's a lot of people with multi-million-dollar homes, not mansions, multi-million-dollar homes in some of the Canada bigger cities, have zero income and thus collecting welfare. In a recent letter to the Finance Minister, Bill Monroe, the Investment Industry Association of Canada said it recommended that the federal government reintroduce a program to attract foreign direct investment to Canada through formal immigration investor program as a part of the COVID recovery efforts.
I beat China all the time.
That's our friend Donald Trump there on the soundboard. You know, he's really good here. He's got my back once in a while. You know what I'm saying?
I love China.
All right. So Canada's Immigration Department says it has no plan to revive the scheme, but the IAC letter is part of long-term lobbying by immigration and investment industries to restart the millionaire migration to Canada. Watch this, guys. Do not... Let me get this on full screen here. This is what I have to say to this, this plan here. Don't blink because you'll miss it. Right there. Right there. Year after year, declared incomes of businessmen, immigrants were puny. Typical lower incomes of the multiplied challenged refugees. So there's a lot of people working minimum wage that had a higher income than a lot of these millionaires, right? The Conference Board of Canada hosted 2 entrepreneur investment immigration summits in 2017 and 2018. We covered that on the channel. And that was the time when they were unveiling condos. In condos built in Vancouver, they were unveiling them in Shanghai. And they were making fun of us in Canada because we can't afford our own properties. A report from the Second Summit Council, it concluded an incumbent upon federal, provincial, and territorial governments to assess how they can better harness the qualities of high net worth individuals to help grow the country's economy. You're not going to grow the country's economy to bringing in people who are not going to produce, who are not going to contribute to the infrastructure, and who don't give a damn about being Canadian. That's the problem right there. Oh, hold on. Right there. Before being closed, the FIIP was considered a very reputable and industry-leading program. So they're saying, oh, we made tons of money off this, bringing in a lot of wealthy people. The FIIP was indeed one of the most popular wealth-determined migration schemes in the world. From 1986 to 2014, more than 190,000 rich immigrants moved to Canada under the FIIP and its sister program, the Quebec IIP. So, yeah, there's a huge story behind the whole Quebec thing, too. So it goes into a lot of stuff here. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but I want to go into the part, the evidence for its failure is abundant, said Lay, author of the 2010 book, Millionaire Migrants. Year after year, declared incomes of business migrants were puny, typical lower than the incomes of multiply challenge refugees. He said that the astronaut family arrangement in which the breadwinner in millionaire migrant families returned to Asia, typical to live and work, leaving a spouse and children in Canada, put a heavy burden on families. And the abundant capital that millionaire migrants brought with them typically was invested in real estate and contributed to the house price inflation and an unaffordability in Toronto, especially Vancouver, where the wealthiest immigrants bought property. Immigrant investor schemes also featured in the biggest immigration fraud in Canadian history, in which unlicensed consultant Sunny Wang, we covered this too, was jailed in 2015 for helping hundreds of rich Chinese clients fake their presence in Canada to help them meet the residency qualifications for citizenship. In fact, they were living in China. And they were collecting welfare too while they were in China. In the statement, a spokesman for the Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada said the FIIP had been cancelled because it was found to bring little overall economic benefit to the country. You don't say! Oh! 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 It doesn't bring any benefit getting on the elevator, too, at the mall. I remember once I was in Metrotown Mall. I had my baby carriage, my wife beside me, we were ready to go into the elevator, and a bunch of people ran in front of us. And then I couldn't get on the elevator. I'm like, what? I've been waiting here for like 2 elevators now. They look at me like I burnt their house down. Just kind of wanted to throw that out there. New investor pilot program. The important investor venture capital pilot program was given a test launch in 2015. Okay. Now, let's tie this in now. Let's tie this in. Now, we're going to be tying in articles, right? The whole concept of getting the money without the body was not badly perceived by Quebec government. On the contrary, they were, and still, very happy with it, immigration lawyer Jean-Francois Harvey said. So a lot of people got rich, bringing in the rich, right? But a lot of people lost everything. And what do I say? Did they go bankrupt? No. They couldn't buy a house and lay roots and start a family. They couldn't live a proper Canadian lifestyle. It happened in Los Angeles, it happened in Oregon, and it happened in Seattle, Washington State. So now, let's tie in this article. Now, I did some digging, and I found an article from 2014. Again, from the South China Morning Post. Listen to this. Canada scraps millionaire visa scheme, dumps 46,000 Chinese applications. Tens of thousands of Chinese millionaires will will have their applications scrapped and their application fees returned. So this was under the other political party back in 2014.
The Mexican government.
The United States of America.
I love China.
Yeah. Tens of thousands of Chinese millionaires will face the uncertain future after Canada's government moved to scrap its controversial investor visa scheme, which allowed waves of rich Hong Kongers and mainland Chinese to emigrate since 1986. So what happens? The next party comes into play. The Liberal Party wins, and this comes up in 2016. Canada wants more Chinese workers, students, and tourists as immigration minister. Not only did they open the borders or open themselves to 40,000 people a year, they actually opened their borders to. Let me open this so you could actually see it. For those that didn't see me read this article a billion times on this channel, it all links. Visas have been increasing from China to about 500,000 per year. In 11 years, Canada will be completely China. Because none of the Canadians or Canadian proper is having children. So, McCollum said visas have been increasing from China to 500,000 per year. And that's why now, from this article in 2016, we're in 2020 now, fast forward to today. We are autonomous regions of China. Period. No questions asked, no debate. Somebody asked me, said, hey, Mike, I know the federal election is a long ways away in Canada. Who do you think is going to win? The Liberals. 100%. I'm going to go vote Conservative or for Bernie and Maxie. Heck, I might even run in a Conservative party for the sake of getting a voice out there. But to be frank with you, I don't think they stand a chance. But opening more visa offices could help Canada compete for more Chinese workers, students, and lucrative tourist business. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK have been playing this very dangerous game, competing and binging off Chinese wealth. Now, here's the problem with that now. Let me tell you what the problem with this is, is it's completely sold out. We've sold out. I have so many articles I could bring up. Canada's biggest mine sells to China. No Canadian hires. No Canadians allowed to work there. In Canada. In the biggest coal mine in BC. Look it up. So that's the problem we're bringing into the country. Right? Money talks, bull walks. Bull crap walks. You know that saying? Well, then we started doing that student loan crap. Where the locals can't afford to get those federal loans anymore. A lot of people bought into that whole student loan scheme. And now they're stuck with all this education, but they can't find a job. And that's another problem. And let me tell you how that played out. Well, a lot of Canadians indebted themselves to levels of impoverishment and can't work anywhere. Or can't have troubles finding a job. And they can't afford it anymore. So what do? They triple the tuition and bring in foreign students. And there's been a lot of colleges caught laundering money for a lot of foreign students. They would apply for a course, and then they would drop out of the course, and then they would get a 90% refund, and 10% will be held by the school. But a lot of colleges across Canada have been caught doing that more than probably 16 to 25,000 times. It's all about money, folks. You know, you stay on the straight and narrow. You want to be good to your neighbors. You want to, you want to love your family, be with each other, and get to know people and adventure through life. And it shatters when money is basically. I keep calling money the Antichrist. Money sells your. I'm not going to get into philosophicalness. Join us on Mike on the Night for that. Okay, so let's keep going. Article scan. So now, Australia was going hard too, and so was the UK. The UK, up until the first and second quarter of 2020, first and second quarter of 2019, the UK was working hard to promote foreign investing. In the UK and London, a majority of the property, even the rundown properties, they're all owned by foreign investing. So what happened? 2016, we opened the doors, and Vancouver has been transformed by Chinese immigration. Completely transformed the city and just completely turned it on its head, right? Then what happened was there was a white exodus and Aboriginal exodus. Aboriginals and whites leaving Metro Vancouver. So there it is. Tens of thousands of whites and Aboriginals leaving Metro Vancouver for other parts of the province in 1 year period ending July 2016. It coincides with this, 2016. So you see what's happening here? So all these people leave, city becomes transformed. And you know, one city in the Commonwealth that's got transformed pretty much in a span of 2 little years, Dublin, Ireland. Dublin, Ireland seen a mass transformation of its city within 2 years. Up until like 2018, people walking down the streets are like, what are these people doing outside? Oh, they're bidding wars on a house. What is that? So in Ireland, people were tuning into my show because I know a guy that talks about this stuff. So there's some people in Dublin, and there's a small group of people in Belfast that watch me. And they told me that, holy crap, Mike, what you were saying, and they sent me articles. But the Irish petitioned on the streets. The Irish were out petitioning, and they were advocating and starting like a couple of heated moments there for the right things. They were actually petitioning and out on the streets protesting for housing affordability for a whole 2 weekends in a row, right? At least the Irish petition for things that matter, right? Canada would be in a recession without money laundering, right? And it matters because if you don't have a house to raise a family in, and I'm speaking for every person from all walks of life that came to Canada. I'm one of them. I'm a Portuguese. I'm one of those statistics that had to leave the coast because I'm not spending $2 million on a tear-down property. Right? So here it is. Then it leads to this, that Canada would be in a recession without money laundering. Oh my goodness, look at this. A lot of gems last week. BC's money laundering report. So they had the report going on. So they've gotten from 2011 to 2015, and they found out that $200 billion was laundered through Canadian housing. Or it has to be housing. Can I tell you why I know it's housing? Because it excludes reinvestment typical in the layering and integration process of money laundering. So that means when they say that, that's actually something the mafia does, where they actually open a store in a mall, and then they put their taxes through, they pay their wages, they contribute to the infrastructure. So the mafia actually does a good thing because they pay their taxes and actually clear that money, right? So, but unfortunately, when they're doing it through real estate, and Canada has this open window here to come on in, bring your money, transform our city, kick our locals out, guess what, guys? We're entering into a massive recession period now in 2020. And what better cover to use than Covey? Our friend Covista. Let's move on. So, this is from a few days ago. This is from yesterday. Prince Albert. Housing experts sound alarm over increased homelessness due to Covey. So you're like, well, Mike, I thought you were talking about homeless or housing affordability. What does this have to do with that? Where did Covey come from? Hold on. I'll tell you where it came from.
China. 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 I love China.
Yeah. So, more problems. And it leads to this. I don't want to read this because it's just going to flag my video. BC records the highest number of fatal OODs in a single month with 170 deaths. And it claimed more lives than Covey. Why? A lot of people have fallen on hard times. And because a lot of these people don't have a lot of money, and guess what happens? They fall through the cracks, and they get very disappointed. Very disappointed how we sold our country out. So disappointed how we sold our country out. Read that. No Canadian hires for 4 years, a Chinese-owned mine. I'm just disappointed. You know, like, what do you... I've been sounding this alarm for so many years. I've risked my life. I've literally risked my life in a lot of into a lot of situations. Because all these videos I've been doing the trends in the housing market for years now. I've been making videos since 2014. My first channel got shut down for talking about the Australian housing market. I'm just so disappointed in how we've been betrayed. You know, like, but people are like, no, Mike, it's your governments that did this. But no one expects a government to sell its entire country out in the next 5 generations. Do you know why? It's like, I'm going to be honest with you guys, okay? I'm going to call a spade here. I don't think, like, a country, for example, like Russia, okay? I don't think that the president of Russia or the current administration of Russia would be so desperate to prop their economy that they would sell out the next 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generation of their the Russians' futures. They're the children of the children of the future. Like, I know, like, Russia could be like pretty heavy-fisted and heavy-fisted and stuff when it comes to policy and stuff. Okay, heck, maybe like countries like even Iran, maybe Saudi Arabia, right? Even Mexico. Mexico, you can't buy in Mexico. I've tried to buy in 2 states in Mexico, and I called a good friend of mine who practices law. He's a lawyer, and I asked him. This was in January of this year. I said, "Hey, can I buy a house in Mexico now?" He's like, "Nope." They'd even make it harder for foreigners to own in Mexico. You see, the problem is, you see, Mexico is going to be Mexico in 100 years. What is Canada going to be in 100 years? I even did a video about Sydney or Australia disappearing in about less than 30 years, right? Let's go to article scan. If you're still watching, thanks for sticking around. See what we got here. Vancouver versus Sydney is about 3 years ago. Housing crisis, Sydney, get out of Sydney. This is over 4 or 5 years ago. It's saying 3 because the video was taken down. I haven't lived here in about 5 years now. Sydney housing crash, or buy now, don't buy. Yeah, I made a video, Sydney, Australia, do not buy, and this was a year ago. Toxic housing, Sydney. Wow. So much Australia here on my channel. Look, 3, 4 years ago. Sydney, Melbourne, a stability problem. Because I was wrong the whole time. Can I tell you why I was wrong about everything? It's because I tied average wages to the price of housing. Yes, the foreign investors were coming in, and I was mentioning it the whole time. But it's just wages, average wage earners weren't tied, couldn't have to save for 25 years to put a down payment. It just didn't work out mathematically. Anyways, guys, I'm talking too much. Let me know what you guys think. I really tried, like, to address this issue really hard. I pushed it hard. You know, people call me racist, people call me this, people call me all this. But, like, what's the idea of Canada anymore? What's the idea of Australia anymore? That's what's scary. Comment below. I'll read your comments. I'll be reading your comments on this one. Thanks for watching, guys.